I didn't even have the ability to recognize or know, wow, this is anxiety.
So anxiety is interesting, right? Like, where does it come from? Why does it happen? And that's where let's get to the root of it, right? Let's talk about it. So, by the way, I'm a student of this. I am not a doctor, scientist, wellness leader. I'm none of these things, guys. I am your everyday Joe that was just caught up in a cycle of like a pattern of thinking that wasn't healthy for me. And I didn't realize it at the time, but it's called high functioning anxiety. There's actually a condition, I guess now, that a lot of us suffer from, and it's like we can function, right? But you can look good, feel good, or think you feel good, but you're actually not, because what you're doing isn't normal and wasn't ever supposed to be normal. But understanding why it happens is the key, right? So you go back to the amygdala in the brain. The amygdala is just like this almond shaped size in your brain, that this part in your brain that is a good thing. It senses threats, right? But it's always scanning. So it's like beep 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 beep. It's this radar that's detecting. Oh, I'm in a dark alley, you hear a noise. Let's activate missile launch, right? Like, let's get the adrenaline up. Let's get the cortisol pumping. Let's get the muscles activated, and that's great when you need to fight someone or when you need to get the hell out of where you are. How often does that happen, right? How often are you needing to literally fight somebody? Not often, hopefully, right? So what happens is we're living in this like semi-fight or flight mode because, and this is silly, but we get 100 notifications to our phone every day. 150 actually is the average. You get the notification to your phone. Give me an example here. And you haven't even checked it yet, but automatically in your brain, it's you're about to receive information and your brain is getting ready for it and it's worried about it. What if it's a bad message? What if this
Mhm.
is a negative message? What if it's something that I'm going to have to deal with? So you're already, it's called tech apnea. So what happens is you're looking at your phone or your screen, whatever it is, and you're holding your breath for 1, 2, 3 seconds, whatever it is, or your breath becomes really shallow. And then that signals your brain to say, uh-oh, time to engage. Let's launch the missile sequence. And we do this like a few hundred times a day. There's consequences to that. And it's that we're like overreacting to the stimuli. So, and I know this is like a lot of information, but for me, it all happened at once. It was like, wait, whoa. I know that look, I have an addiction to my phone. I'm not going to stop that. I need the information. I have to work. I have to communicate. The 50,000 thoughts are going to come, and 80% of those are negative, but that's hard to stop those because they just keep originating. But one thing I can choose to do is to slow my breath. And if I can slow my breath, I can change how I feel. But it's becoming aware of your breathing. That's the most important. So the anxiety is always going to be there because that amygdala is not going to stop, right? It's going to keep firing out those signals of like, what about this? What about that? What about this? And some of that is good, right? You want to be aware of your environment, but it's when it's overactive that you get this feeling of like that tightness in your chest. I had this. I had it in my early
Yeah.
30s, in my 20s. It was just in my teens. It was just always there, and it normalized, which is kind of sad. Like, to have tension become normalized, you're taking years off your life, and a lot of us turn to the wrong answers for that, right? You were saying drinks like that. So was I. So I think what you have to realize is that the thoughts, the thinking is okay. That can change. But if you can immediately put, a marker in the ground, is like, if I can change how I breathe, I can change how I feel. And man, that feels good. It feels good to feel that power of like, I can control how I'm feeling. I haven't felt that in a long time, where it always took something else to get me to feel that. So I love I love talking about anxiety because a lot of people go in a different direction and I go in one, and that's the awareness of it. It's actually called interoception.
Mm.
It's it's the feeling of how often do you guys ask yourself, and this is a simple question. Again, this is all simple stuff, but how do I feel? How often
Mhm.
do you do that? Every day, how often do you ask yourself, how do I feel right now?
Maybe once.
It's not good enough, right? Because if you're asking yourself how you feel, you're going to be sending out a message to your body saying, all right, let's do a systems check. Has the chest, has the shoulders, is the tongue on the roof of my mouth? How am I breathing? Am I here right now? Or am I time traveling in the past? Am I going to the future? Like, so systems check is like, hey, how are we doing right now? And if you can ask that question a lot more often, you're going to be able to make these little adjustments, right? Micro adjustments. You don't have to, overwhelm yourself at the end of the day where you're like, oh my goodness, like I like, how did I get to this place where I'm sweating right now? you can make these micro adjustments. And that's where just that question of how do I feel can change your state of mind, because you're actually checking in. It's like, oh, all right, actually, I'm a little tense right now. Why? All right, let's investigate it, pull ourselves back, a few deep breaths. Okay, now I'm in a position where I can actually deal with it.
This is the Knockin' Doorz Down podcast, featuring celebrities, experts, and everyday people who have overcome adversities, including addiction, mental health, and trauma, to live purposeful lives. And that's what Knockin' Doorz Down is all about.